Hello, my name is Ronald Griffin from Artificial Animation, and this is going to be a tutorial covering basic and somewhat intermediate color correction within After Effects. I'll be using After Effects CS5. You can use it with CS4 and CS3 and whatever else the plugin comes with. First of all, I want to say a big thanks to everyone who subscribed, everyone who supported the channel. If you haven't maybe noticed, we got a YouTube partnership on this channel, so we'll be making, and when I say we, I mean the team at Artificial Animation, will be making tutorials, not just myself, but Borovez. He'll be making web design and graphic design tutorials using Photoshop, and hopefully we can get some others to chip in some tutorials as well. So yeah, a massive thank you to everyone who subscribed. It's pretty much been our goal here to get YouTube partnership, and it's been the push we've been needing to have in order to get more tutorials out there. Another thing is I haven't made a tutorial in probably oh god, I don't even want to check how long, but my microphone broke down and now I have a new microphone thanks to the guys over at Audio Technica, and I'll be making a review on that, but as you can hear, it is stunning. Anyways, enough about that, enough about me. That's not what you wanted to see. You probably want to see how to do color correction. Also, by the way, the theme here, all this stuff, the rain, this is called Rain Meter. I know I'm going to get asked a lot of questions about it. I will be making a tutorial on how to make your desktop look like this. So no worries there. Anyway, moving on to the tutorial. Like I said, we will be using magic bullet looks, and I'll also cover non-magic bullet looks because this is quite a steep price tag. But if you want to follow along here, you can go to redgiantsoftware.com, and on their homepage, this should be popping up. And if you're watching this in the future, you know, and for whatever reason they decided to update, you can always go to products, and then somewhere around here, magic bullet suit, sweet suit. Don't know. You can click free trial here, and hopefully you'll just download this and follow along. Now, the color correction that I do in my videos, or most of my videos, are pretty linear. There's a couple of things you need to really focus on, and that is three basic things that I usually go by when I am color correcting a clip, image, or whatever it may be. Always make sure that the subject is in plain view. An example of bad color correction would be if I, for example, crushed this image, and you can see that, you know, obviously all the details lost, and it makes for a good silhouette, but that isn't essentially what we want to do. We want to make sure that our subject, which is this guy in the hunter right here, is in clear view. That's the most important thing, and I think a lot of people neglect that, and they just don't really see the point. And just think that if the image overall looks good, then it's good color correction. It's mostly a subliminal kind of war with your audience, but if you manage to get your subject in focus and get a good color correction on the subject, then that's usually what's going to pay off a lot more than the background elements. The second thing I usually follow by is to keep it simple. If you overdo your colors, you're most likely going to pretty much scare the viewer away, or maybe the viewer just will hate it. And that isn't something you want to do. You want to keep the colors kind of, you know, universal. You want something that everyone will like. Obviously, you should be making videos for yourself, but with that in mind, you do also want to learn a thing or two, and making other people happy while they're watching your video is probably going to help you out a bit. As you can see, if I switch the effects off for this layer, you can see here's the original, and this is some quick correction I just threw up. We're dealing with color correction here, and that's a wrong term to be using for this image, because all we really need to actually correct this image is because it's a bit too matte. So if we wanted to correct it, all we really need to do is we just need to crush the RGB a bit and put in some contrast into this image, and then I would have to say that the color has been corrected. What we're doing is we're adding a lot more cinematic look to the image, so it's a good idea to get an understanding of what we're dealing with. But yeah, let's move on to actually creating these colors. The last simple thing to follow by is to just make sure that all the colors are even and you don't have a lot of randoms of red or green or blue all over the image. If you want to keep it sort of, you know, tinted a certain hue. But of course, that doesn't always apply to every clip. If you need to tint it something else and you want multiple colors all over the screen, that's fine. Just make sure that you have a good use for it. Otherwise, generally try and keep all the colors in the same type of range. So you want to just drag your clip, and I have a left-threaded clip here. I've imported it from my Fraps folder, and I'm just going to drag it into the Make New Comp button, which is down here, and that'll bring up a new composition. And here's our timeline. I'm assuming you're a bit familiar with After Effects if you're watching this. I'm going to scrub through to a point where I think it's a good place to start. So the reason I do this is because when we apply Magic Bullet Looks, you can go to Effect, Magic Bullet Looks, and make sure you have your clip highlighted when you do that. And the reason I say that it's important to get a still frame is because Magic Bullet Looks Builder, which is this thing, if we hit edit, it uses the current frame that you're looking at, and you can't scrub through it. So basically find a good frame, and here we can see it's a fade, and that isn't necessarily what I want, but right here I would say it's a good point to start color correcting, because that's where the action kind of happens. This thing comes with the camera, and that's when it cuts. But right here is a good place to color correct, in my opinion. So find a good frame and go ahead and apply your looks and hit edit. So now we're in the looks builder, and while the looks builder supplies us with literally a ton of presets, and I have downloaded some as well, but it comes with a ton of presets, and you should maybe mess around with this, but if there's one thing I learned the hard way, is don't use presets. In fact, if you're video editing, you should almost always be original, and always try and mix things up that you learn. For example, this tutorial you're viewing now, if you're watching this and you're trying to get better at After Effects, the one thing I can tell you right now is always try and fuse what you learn with other sources. Don't just, you know, copy the colors in this video and, you know, think that that's it. You should really try and blend it with other methods and try and get the best result for you that you're happy with. So yeah, always try and be creative with your colors. But I'm just going to show you real quick. There's some presets within Magic Bullet Looks that you can apply, and you can preview them. You can even go through a theater, and you can click View, and it kind of just like scrolls through all the different ones. But we're going to be building our own preset rather today. So if you hover your mouse over Tools over here, this thing pops out. I'm going to start with the subject. So the subject is basically this little thing, this little guy down here. He's a subject. And this is, I don't really know why they named it that, but you can apply anything to anywhere. So I can take something from the matte palette and apply it to subject if I wanted to. So not really sure how that works. But yeah, from subject, get your contrast. So I'm going to drop that onto my subject. And if we mess with this, you can see that's what contrast is. It just adds, it boosts colors and evens everything out. Okay, the next thing we want to go ahead and add is diffusion, and that can be found in matte, diffusion, you pop it on there, and that is sort of like a glow. It diffuses the image. And the next 4 things we want to add is from the post tab. First thing I'm going to grab is saturation. Second thing I'm going to grab is lift gamma gain. And third thing, color contrast. Where are you? Here we are. And the fourth thing, an auto shoulder. There we are. All right, so now we have our basic tools. And as you can see, this does not look that great. It doesn't look that different. It's basically just added some glow. But we're going to start fixing that now. So let's start with the contrast, and we're just going to pop the contrast up a bit, and you can play with the slider here. As you can see, I'm just putting the slider up a bit, and already we're seeing some pretty interesting results. And we can go over to diffusion, and diffusion is something you don't want to really overdo. You know, I don't want my whole screen to be glowing, but it is a nice subtle effect if you use it right. So I'm just going to leave it like that. The diffuse will come out a lot more when we keep messing with the colors. As for the saturation, I'll just move this, just really play around with it and see what suits you. The bar on the right will basically drop and raise the values. I'm just going to leave it a bit bluish. And if we go over to the lift gamma gain, this is really the deal breaker. Lift gamma gain basically changes all the channels and levels of each color. So I wanna tint. Let's start with a bit of green. Maybe that'll suit. And as you can see, really nice effects are coming onto our grass here. If I move that out, you'll see it kind of just dims. But if I move this down into the green, if you do it right, you can pop out some of the green in these flowers, which is, well, bushes, not flowers, which is rather nice. You just don't want to overkill it because then the whole image will kind of, yeah. So that's good. And now I'm going to move on to the second gamma. And we'll just put the gamma kind of down in the bluish kind of tint. And the gain. We'll make that blue too. And then we're going to move on to the color contrast. And the color contrast is basically a contrast based on colors. So let's move that into the blue. And that's good. And the auto shoulder, this really just messes with the highlights, and we won't see any of that really come on until later. So let's go back to the diffusion, and as you can see here, the more we mess with the diffusion now, it's kind of more noticeable. What I want to do is I want to go back to my lift gamma gain and mess a bit more with my values. And it's really just a matter of tweaking your values until you get what you're after. There's really no magic formula. And I'm going to bump up the contrast. And as you can see, now that I've done a bit more tweaking, the diffusion is popping out a lot more. And this is the point where I want to go ahead and set down the diffuse size and the grade as well. Kind of just make it subtle. Or subtle, rather. And there we go. Now, for now, I'm just going to leave this looks builder. So hit OK, and that applies our changes. And the next thing I'm going to add here is click on your layer, go to Effect, Color Correction, Curves. And this is an additional set of curves. You can do this within a looks builder, but because you have things like the pen tool here, that you can draw your own curve, but generally I like using this one a lot better than the looks one, simply because I'm just more used to it. So first let's drop it down a bit, and so we're just crushing the image even more. And I'm just going to go ahead and take the blue channel and raise it up a bit. Next, I'm going to apply color correction tint, because I notice this image is very off balance, and I don't want it to be this much blue. And a quick and easy way to settle your colors is to just turn up the tint. 32 tint right now is giving me a good cinematic balance between the blue and the green in the image, and I'd have to say I'm pretty happy with that. You can also see some of the red is actually popping out. And we can add a bit of red here to sort of make the image a lot more interesting. If we're looking at it from a perspective where he dies, this guy here that's in the air, then we can add a bit of red to enhance the blood and kind of set it more gloomy. As you can see over here on the right, or left, sorry, you can see a bit of red appearing. And one more thing I'm going to apply is, it's basically the same as diffuse, but it's called glow. So go to Effect, Stylize Glow. And this is kind of like our second pass of diffuse. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower this intensity back to 0.3. And with that done, if you just look at the image from an all-around perspective, I'm going to lower that again to 0.1. And now if we turn that on and off, you can see it's very subtle, but it enhances the top of the image, which is kind of what I want. 0.2 maybe. And I have to say I like that. Now let's go back into the looks builder, because I feel that these colors are a bit incomplete yet. Incomplete rather. So I'm just going to continue messing around with the lift gamma gain. And another thing I'm going to apply here is a vignette within the looks builder. And you can do this in After Effects as well. You can make a vignette in After Effects, but for ease of use, I'm just going to apply it in here. So that'll be under Lens, and then you grab your vignette, you put it down here. And I'm just going to drag this out. Now we have a soft vignette around the edges of the image. And seeing as this is sort of like a cinematic type of situation, we can add some edge softness, which is basically blur on the edges. And if we turn the quality up and turn the radius down, and we have some soft blur on the edges, which, if you ask me, looks a lot better than without it. So hit OK again, and you can see our colors have changed. And that's pretty much it for my type of color correction. I mean, like I said, just try and be creative. Create your own thing and you'll eventually get good colors. I am going to do a second example now. So another set of colors on a different type of clip. Because I feel that I'm not showing off really everything that this plugin can do. But for this clip, this looks pretty good in my opinion. It's good simple color correction and it has good cinematic value. Let's go ahead and grab another clip and we'll see how that looks. So I'm just going to drag another clip in from my Fraps folder and make new comp button. And assuming you've watched the first half, you'll pretty much find it easy to follow this path. You add looks again, and again we're going to drop in all the things that we had in the first place. That's just basically how I start out. It's just how I do it. So diffusion, and then we go into post. We want to grab the saturation, lift gamma gain, auto shoulder, and color contrast. And I'm going to again skip to a place which is a good frame where I can color correct. So right here. Okay, so again, we begin the color correcting cycle. We'll contrast up, and as you can see, this is giving us very nice colors. Because of the diversity of colors in the image, we're able to do so much more with this image than we are with the other one. So it really goes to show, I feel that I'm going to be able to show you a much better example here than I will in the other clip, and that's why I'm doing this. So the saturation here, you can see if you bleed the saturation completely, it becomes black and white. And if you overdo it, that's kind of what I was talking about when it came to overdoing your colors. But hopefully that's not something you'll do. So that's 122 is pretty much good for this. And then the color contrast, I'll use a blue, yellowish type of warm feel. So we're gonna move these over, and we'll enhance the yellow in this image. And that's gonna make the image feel a lot more warm. Alright, so I'm gonna click OK, and the looks builder is gonna close down. And we're gonna add curves here, and gonna crush it a bit. Gonna add some red and bump up the green just a bit. Alright, and at this point I'm gonna go ahead and add the glow. And I do actually love glow because, again, if it's subtly used, then you can get a very nice result from it. So here we have kind of huge bloom, and if we tweak with the settings, we can get it down. Alright, so as you can see, we've pretty much got some good color here. I think the bloom is a bit overdone still, so I'm going to turn down the size. And here you can see some really nice colors pop out. And to equalize this a bit, I'm going to apply color correction tint. And there we are. And since this is sort of like a frag clip, I'll just apply something you don't really need to worry about. It's called Revision Real Smart Motion Blur. You can check that out. It adds motion blur, as you can see. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the color correction. That is sort of the process I take. Just keep in mind the tips I've given along the way in the tutorial, and I think you'll be on your way to creating great colors. It's just a matter of practice and sort of looking at real life examples and checking out what looks good and just tweaking. It can take a long time and it can be very tedious, but the payoff is really great if you spend a lot of time on it. So my name's Ronald Griffin for artificialanimation.com. I hope you liked this tutorial. If you have any questions at all, feel free to private message me on YouTube or head over to our forums, artificialanimation.com/forum. And I hope I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thank you.